Are you planning on starting a side hustle like print on demand, digital downloads, or just selling products, maybe like drop shipping, but you're confused on whether you should be selling on Etsy or Shopify? Then this video is for you. They both have strong advantages and disadvantages, and it may depend on how you want to run your store, your time commitment, or some other factors. So today we're going to go over the pros and cons for each to help you decide where you want to start. Let's start with the Shopify pros. And the first one is its ability for customization. With Shopify, you can make your storefront look however you would like. There are some templates out there that you can use, or if you want this to be fully customized, that is in the range of possibilities. This can help set you apart from other people. But keep in mind, it needs to be a good template to bring trust. If someone goes to a Shopify store or just any website that they're planning to purchase from, and it looks a little sketchy or underdone, that's really going to hurt your credibility. So really keep that in mind when you are creating your Shopify website. With Shopify, you can also integrate with tons of other payment providers. Etsy is kind of limited versus with Shopify, there are tons of plugins that you can use to get access to different payment providers for your customers. With Shopify, they also have tons of apps that you can use to help entice sales or to just help your store look better. You can get like contest wheels, you can get better email newsletters, you can get upsells, you can get reviews. Etsy already has reviews, but Shopify, these are more customized. So with using these apps, you can really upscale your store. If you do marketing, specifically paid marketing, Shopify gives you a lot more data to run with. Etsy, you can link with Google Analytics, but it's not very detailed and you can't really use that data in a very helpful way. Versus with Shopify, if you know how to use Google Analytics, if you set up your tracking correctly, you can get a lot more helpful marketing data to make decisions. I'd also say Shopify is way better if you are looking to create a brand that you can charge higher for. Etsy is more of people are searching by individual products instead of your storefront. Versus if you wanted to create a brand with emotion behind it, it might be better to go with Shopify. And now to the cons of Shopify. Number one is the high fees. And it is funny because everybody talks about Etsy's high fees, pretending as if Shopify doesn't charge like crazy as well. On top of some processing fees, your payment provider fees, there are also high monthly subscription fees. To even get started and start selling on your store, you need to be paying for the monthly subscription, which means early on, if you aren't making sales, you are just losing money versus on Etsy, you are not paying to have your store. You only pay fees when you make a sale. So you can't really go into the negative with your Etsy store, but you can easily kind of dig yourself into a hole with your Shopify store if you are taking a long time to get it set up. On top of these fees, you'll also be paying website hosting. Website hosting is so you can actually get your website live versus on Etsy, you don't have to pay for that. They create your own little store and your own URL for you. And then earlier in the pros, I mentioned all the apps that you can integrate into your Shopify, but the problem is majority of these are an extra charge and are often more than not an extra monthly subscription. And yes, a lot of these unfortunately are kind of needed to make a really nice website. Some of them include like the different payment providers, some of your upsells, some of your reviews. There are free versions out there, but usually once you start actually making sales, or even some, if you don't make any sales, they're just adding to your monthly payment, which you are charged no matter if you make sales or not. The second con is you have to handle these without the support of Etsy. Etsy actually has help for you to manage your customers. If a product goes missing, they actually have, I think it's a $200 budget to help refund that customer without charging you. They also have support so you can ask some questions and forums. So while Etsy service isn't the best out there, It is a step up from Shopify where everything is on you. Number 3, if you are a beginner to the online world, Shopify is going to be a lot more difficult to get started. Etsy is also a steep learning curve, but not to the same degree. There is a lot more you're going to need to know to create a successful Shopify store versus Etsy. You can just get started and slowly learn. And then the biggest reason that I like Etsy over Shopify is because Shopify is not going to drive you any traffic. That is the responsibility of you. You are going to need to do social media or paid ads to drive traffic to your store. So either you are giving up extra time or extra money to actually make sales on your store. Versus on Etsy, it is a marketplace, so they'll actually drive traffic for you, and you don't need to do what is called outbound marketing the same way that you're going to need to do if you have a Shopify store. There's the difference of type of people you are reaching with your Shopify store. You are more doing outbound marketing. You are reaching people and convincing them that they need this product. Versus on Etsy, people are typing your product they already have intent to buy when they find you on Etsy, which is more inbound marketing. You don't need to convince people, they're already searching. But with outbound marketing, this is actually a pro, but you are able to convince a lot more people. This is going to be more scalable in the long term if you do it right. And keep in mind that with Shopify, you are going to need a brand. You should not be selling pillows, t-shirts, mugs, blankets, pet collars with tons of different niches. You really need to nail down what you are selling so that you can actively tailor your marketing. And now, moving on to Etsy, let's go into the pros. My first and favorite part about Etsy, the reason I sell everything on Etsy, is because, like we mentioned earlier, they are a marketplace. People are already searching for your products. They already have intent to buy. And if you're showing up in front of them, they're going to purchase without you having to do the active, either paid ads or the active social media marketing to drive traffic to your store. But just because there's people organically searching for you doesn't mean that you can't do social media marketing or paid ads. You still can drive external traffic to your Etsy store. But that's just on top of the traffic you're already getting for free. The only fee that you are going to be paying before you get a sale is your listing fees, but it's only 20 cents per listing. And if you just Google 40 free listings, you can find a code that'll give you your first 40 free listings to get started. And Etsy is extremely easy to get started, especially as a beginner. They have pretty much set up most things for you. You just need to create your branding, which you can easily do by using Canva templates, Creative Fabrica templates. You can find a lot of Etsy branding templates out there to quickly create your store, and you can get your store set up and running literally within a day, which I don't think would be possible with Shopify. That's going to be a lot more work to get started. And we mentioned earlier that Shopify has apps that you can add in, and they have more, but Etsy has a lot of these already pre-built in without charging you, like reviews, like the payment processes. They also offer some upsells as well. So these are already integrated without you ever having to even think about adding them, about choosing the right ones or paying for them. Another one of my favorite things about Etsy is you don't have to have your full brand in mind yet. This can be where you figure it out. For my store, I test tons of different niches. I throw in a bunch of related products. I wouldn't be throwing in products that have nothing to do with each other. But I throw a bunch up, and then I see what's working. And then I start tailoring my store to what's working. On Etsy, people find you by your individual listing and not by your storefront. Unlike on Shopify, where if you have a brand, the first thing they're looking at is that brand. And if it's not trustworthy, they're not purchasing from you. Versus on Etsy, a lot of people just look at your listing and rarely actually even check out your storefront. Though I am not saying do not optimize your storefront. Please do make it look nice because that's still throwing away extra sales. but it is not the first gate that someone looks on at when they're deciding to purchase from you. And now some cons to Etsy. There is a limited amount of customization you can do, which is both a pro and a con. They've set everything up for you, made it super easy, but that also means you can't be too creative. You can't design and code your Etsy shop. You can only really do your branding and your listings to set yourself apart from customers. There are also limited options when it comes to payment providers. With Shopify, you can bring in a bunch versus Etsy only works with, I believe, just credit cards and PayPal. Maybe Stripe, but I don't have Stripe. So it is going to be harder if you did want to use a different payment processor. You can't really bring that into Etsy if it's not something that they already offer. And then this is another big, massive con towards Etsy, which is the competition. There is a lot more competition on Etsy than Shopify. Shopify, because you're going to have to be doing outbound marketing, you're reaching people and convincing them to purchase, like we mentioned. But with inbound marketing, people are searching for a product and they're probably only looking for one of them. Yet there are thousands and thousands of Etsy sellers probably selling something extremely similar to you. So with Shopify, you can charge higher because when people are clicking into your store, they're not comparing you to thousands of other extremely similar products. Versus with Etsy, you really need to find a way to stick out amongst the thousands of others selling the exact same thing and convincing that one person that yours is the product that they want. For purchasers on Etsy, if they click into your listing, if they scroll down, they see other similar items. Well, some might be your products. Some of them are competitors. On Shopify, they're never going to show a competitor's under your own thing you sell versus Etsy is. Etsy is looking out for Etsy, not for you. They just want to make a sale. Keep in mind with Etsy, you are also limited to what you can sell. You have to sell things you make or things you have designed. So you can do digital downloads, you can do print on demand, you can sell your own crafts, but you can't sell someone else's product. So flat drop shipping is not allowed on Etsy, but you can do that on Shopify. Okay, so you may have listened and you're still thinking, well, I don't know where to start. Well, here's my recommendation. My recommendation, as long as you are not doing drop shipping, if you do not know exactly what you want your brand to be yet, you don't know exactly what you want to sell yet, is get started on Etsy. Get started selling on Etsy to find out what designs sell, what products sell. Because with Etsy, you can test a bunch of things at once because people are finding you by their listing. You can find out what people are generally interested in and then start tailoring your store that way. And then maybe once you have a tailored store, you might want to think about expanding into a Shopify store to supplement your Etsy store. This way, you are covering still the inbound searches for that product, but now you can also move to a more branded Shopify store, which ideally will probably be getting sales quicker because you've already studied what's working. You probably already have your designs created because you already use them for your Etsy store, so you can just carry them over to Shopify and hopefully start making sales faster so that monthly payment doesn't hurt as much. Shopify will be more time consuming to get started and just overall because you are going to be having to do that marketing, but it is better scalable. You're not competing with people as much. You can charge a little bit higher because you are not constantly on the same page as your competitors. But if you don't want to do marketing, you don't have to do Shopify. I just do Etsy. I have considered many times starting my Shopify store, but I've just been having so much fun creating listings and just growing my store that way and getting organic sales without having to pay for any marketing that I've just never taken a leap into moving into Shopify. Maybe in the future, but the options are scaling through my doing marketing or scaling through me growing my listings, and I'm just having way too much fun designing for my Etsy stores. Thank you guys. Please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.